Well, good morning, everybody. This is Mark from Every Man Has a Story, and I'm here with my second interview with my new friend, Kim. Kim is originally from Australia, but he's since retired in Hollywood, Florida, one of my favorite places. So good morning, Kim. Good evening, where you are. How are you today?
Good morning. I'm good, thank you.
We had a lot of positive comments about our interview with you yesterday, and you said that you sat down and was kind of remembering some notes and stories and stuff you were going to share with us today about, especially about your travels, because you've been to a lot of interesting places. And so, why don't you just go ahead and tell us like the first story that we had talked about off camera that you would like to share with us?
Okie dokie, and hello everybody. Thanks for joining us. Well, the first one I thought was I wanted to talk about when I went to visit the Dalai Lama in India. He lives in a village. Most people call it Dharamsala, but it's not really Dharamsala. That's a big town, but above it, a few miles above it, up the hill, is a little town called McLeod Ganj, and that's where he lives. And it's like a little Tibetan village. Well, it's not that little, but it's very Tibetan. It's like you're in Tibet.
Now, did you actually see him there? Was he there
No,
when you were there?
no. We used to joke that as we were driving up the hill, he was driving down the hill. But he travels the world a lot, so we would have been lucky to find him there, really. But the night before that, we were stuck in the Punjab in a town called Pathankot, and I don't think any foreigners have ever stayed there. It was the weirdest thing. It was really hard finding some accommodation, but that's another story. McLeod
Yeah,
Ganj.
like I was telling you off camera, my mother has a friend of hers, Susan, who has known the Dalai Lama for many, many years, probably 20, 30 years. And whenever he comes to America, he stays with her at her house.
That's amazing.
And my mother's had him at her house and hugged him
Wow.
and talked to him and spent a lot of time with him, and they say that, there's just an amazing presence when you're around him. It's a whole interesting story. I think a lot of our viewers probably don't know about the Dalai Lama, how he is actually, now correct me if I'm wrong here, the reincarnation of the previous Dalai Lama or another Dalai Lama. And it kind of goes down like that. Every time they choose a new Dalai Lama, they find a child who, for some way, they can detect that child was a previous Dalai Lama. Am I right? Something like that?
Yes. I believe he's the 16th. They find them normally when they're around 1 or 2. And
really?
Yeah. It has to be young.
And they've already found the new one, right? They've already located the child, as far as I know. I think he was like, last I saw, he was like a 10-year-old boy or something.
No, the Dalai Lama's still alive.
Yeah, but I could have sworn that they've located another Dalai Lama. Like when he dies, there's a lag between then and the new one?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
I just remember seeing it.
There's not just the Dalai Lama, there's the Panchen Lama. There are other lamas as well. In fact, the Panchen Lama, I think he sold out to the Chinese and they wanted the Dalai Lama to as well, but he didn't. He stayed true to his people.
Well, I can vividly remember this documentary that I saw, and the parents were involved. Like the monks came, it was to America, and they found this boy, and they were guided to him, and they went to his parents and said he was the new Lama. I could have sworn they said Dalai Lama, and they ended up. The parents went with them back to Tibet. I wish I could find. I'll have to look for it later. Oh, by the way, everybody that's watching right there, we got people watching. This live stream is my interview with Kim, and I won't be answering any comments. You can comment all you want. They're showing up on the screen here, and you guys can comment amongst yourselves, but I will not be talking about any of your comments. It's just going to be it's a way for me to do interviews with someone from another country and share it with my viewers. So it's kind of a new thing I'm doing now, even though it's a live stream. So I don't want you to think I'm ignoring your comments, okay? So thank you guys for watching. So anyway, you were in Tibet for how long were you there?
In Tibet, well, we're talking about McLeod Ganj at the moment.
Yeah,
it's in India.
Yeah.
Tibet's
in India. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But back to the lamas. There are a lot of great lamas, and when they die, they normally look for them again. So there are lots of Rinpoches, they're called.
Interesting.
Yeah, and they're
How does Lama translate? Like, what does it mean?
a monk.
A monk, okay.
Monk. Lama's a Tibetan monk. Yeah.
Okay, but it
So
doesn't mean like, like a priest or a bishop in another religion. It's just it's not a rank or anything.
No. The highest level of learning is a geshe.
Mm-hmm.
That's like a doctorate of that. But yeah, no, there are a lot of great monk lamas, and they're scattered all around the world now. Rinpoches, they're generally called.
Give me a little bit of wisdom here from, like, you've obviously very interested in this. You've studied the Dalai Lamas and Buddhism. Give me a couple of little nuggets of wisdom that you've gleaned from studying this religion.
Well, I did a 10-day Tibetan course in Kathmandu, in a place called Kopan Monastery, which is near Bodhnath Temple. And that was started up by two great lamas, Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa. Lama Yeshe was, when he died, he was reborn in Spain as Lama Osel. So then he was kind of brought back. And I got a story from that was pretty interesting when I took the course. He was a little 2-year-old boy, and they were taking him to visit another monastery that he knew of from his previous incarnation. And actually, it came back. I think I might be mucking up the story now. But anyways, he visited a monastery, and a car had been damaged that had been given to the monastery by one of their supporters. And the monk told them, actually Lama Yeshe told them they've got to fix that car up. We've got to, these things are precious. We've got to look after them, fix up that dent, in the car. And when he came back as a 2-year-old Lama Osel, Lama Osa, what did I say?
That's okay. We don't need the names. Just tell the story. Yeah.
There's actually a book about him, and it's called Reincarnation. But a little 2-year-old, he walked into that monastery, and they took him. He was near that car, and he went and looked, and the dent was still there, and he was chastising the monks for not fixing the car. Yeah, I thought that was a hilarious story. But wisdom's a lot of it. It's all about contemplative meditation, where you'll contemplate something, and it can be anything really, generally of a spiritual virtue, and they work on that constantly. That they love meditating. They spend a lot of their time meditating. That's the biggest part.
And karma is a big thing too, right? Like whatever you what you reap, you sow, basically.
Yeah, karma to me is like the opposite of the. I mean, not the opposite, but the mirror image of the golden rule. Basically, as you do unto others, it will be done unto you. It's karma. Golden rule is you do unto others as you would have others do unto you. So
since we talk about reincarnation, does your average person reincarnate forever, or is there a time limit on it, or are there people around today who have been Neanderthals? Actually, would it cross species? I mean, how far back does it go?
I've never regressed anyone to a Neanderthal, but I have back to the time of Jesus, which is somewhat interesting. But it probably goes back, I don't know, forever, and not just.
Does it go to like other worlds, other planets, other life forms?
I'm thinking it might, because of Robert Monroe's 3 books. I'm thinking it might. But people I have regressed have always had a life on Earth, and within the past 1,000, 2,000 years. Normally would go back to a past life, which is within 100 years ago.
So, how did you get into regressing people in past lives? Did you take a course? How did you learn how to do it? I mentioned in a previous video of mine that a friend of mine that I met many years ago, Dr. Lori Nadell, I interviewed her on a radio show I was involved with back in Louisville, Kentucky, and she's from Harvard University. She's been on Oprah. She's written some well-known books. I can't remember the name of her books off the top of my head, but she's a psychologist, not a psychiatrist, a psychologist, and she has been regressing people for many, many years, and it's very interesting. So, but how did you get trained in doing this? How did you learn how to do it?
Well, I'm self-taught. I met a guy who had a lifelong interest, an American, had a lifelong interest in Japanese tea ceremony. And I didn't understand how anyone could possibly have a lifelong interest in Japanese tea ceremony. In fact, even learning it, studying it for years. And it turns out that I kept questioning him, and it turned out he had been having he was living in Japan, and he'd been having past life therapy there from someone. And
before you jump into that, tell me what a tea ceremony is. A lot of our viewers have no idea. Like, I've never been to Japan. I've never seen a tea ceremony. So tell me just paint us a little picture about what that is before we move on to why he's so obsessed with it.
Okay, well, it's going to be easier if I tell you why he's obsessed first.
Okay, fine. Okay, go ahead.
He was a monk about 1,000 years ago when the Japanese monks were taking tea from China. They were getting tea and ceremonializing everything. It became part of their meditations. They were using the tea to prolong their meditations. So everything, every aspect of it, the preparation, the serving, the drinking, every little piece of it was ceremonialized, and it was all part of the meditation.
Interesting.
It was all about meditation. And he was
guys watching, once again, seeing comments pop up here. We're not answering comments today. You can still put your comments out there because I'm doing a live interview here. I just wanted to share it with all you guys out there. So you're welcome to put your comments out there. You're welcome to, comment amongst yourselves. And I will be getting back on this later on today or tomorrow and answering comments that are put in their answer or they're still here. So I'll respond to them, but I won't be doing it live on air. So anyway, so that it prolonged their meditation. That's why he was obsessed with it, huh? Interesting.
Well, no, he was obsessed with it, I think, from that lifetime from 1,000 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Brought it back to him. And I'd never heard of, I believed in reincarnation. I have done since I was young, but I didn't realize that people could access memories from their past lives. So from that, I started reading books on it. The first book I got was this one, Whispers of the Mind. And I read that, and there's a script in it. And
hold it up there a little again. Hold up there again, Kim, and do it real slow.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. A little bit right there. Okay, that's good. Thanks.
Okay.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. Whispers of the Mind. So that was the first book. I read many, but that started me off, and it gave me a script to work with. I learned the hypnosis techniques, and I was very successful at regressing a lot of people. All from that.
Tell me one of the most interesting stories of regression that to you was definitely the real deal. That really stuck with you.
Yeah, life-changing story for me. I was again back up in Boston or Cambridge, Massachusetts, and some friends of my friend came around, and they decided they would like to have a group regression. You can also do group regressions. Now, with group regressions, it's not a conversation per se. It's me leading them to different eras of the world, maybe going back 100 years, going back 500 years, going back 1,000 years, and having them imagine they're at home and eating, look at the utensils they're using, the clothes they're wearing. I'd have them set up imagery for their minds to work out what life was like.
Now, while these people are under the hypnosis and experience this, are they talking and telling you what they're? No, they tell you later.
Yes, it's all going on in their mind.
Got it. Okay. All right.
So at the end of it, when we bring them back to here and now, then we can have a chat, a discussion, and discuss what they saw.
Hmm.
Now, one of a lady there had been hesitant about even doing a group regression, but she saw in this group regression, and she couldn't get it out of her mind, a document, and she was curious about what the document was. So I said to her, well, if you would like, I could give you an individual regression and we can explore it, find out what it was all about. So she said, yes, I'd like to do that. So we did, and it took her on a crazy, pretty horrible life, I think in England, and I think several hundred years ago. And the document turned out to be a document to show that her father, who had gone to prison, had been released from prison. It was a release document, and he'd not come back for her. So she was stuck in an orphanage.
Did she know how old she was when she was in the orphanage? Like, what age was she?
I think she was there from very young.
Okay.
And what got her out of the orphanage was a parson from a local village parsonage wanted to take her for his wife, basically. And
how much older was he than her? Did she say that? Or was he an old man or a young man? Or
well, despite that fact, she was a very young lady. She was a young
teenager. Okay, yeah,
young teenager. Wow. Yeah, and she was abused by him, and she had a horrible, horrible life, and she committed suicide. She drowned herself. It reminds me of Ophelia in Hamlet, where she just walked into a lake and drowned herself. But the whole experience, it's easy to talk about it, but to be there and go through it, there were so many tears and so much emotion. It was really, really raw. And her husband was there, and he was really wanting me to bring her back out of it. But I convinced him to let her go through this, which she did. Mm. And she went through her death, and then go through her experience from when she's out of her body and released from all that, the problems, and then exploring what lessons she gained from that life. Anyway, when we came back to normal and brought her back out of it, she made the point that she feels like she's been living with this weight on her shoulders for her whole life, and it's just lifted. So she felt incredibly different.
That's exactly what Dr. Nadell told me, that after she regressed someone to a traumatic event in a past life, once the person who was being regressed realized it and re-experienced it, they could let it go.
Yes.
And they no longer, like, maybe they had a fear of water or a fear of dogs or whatever from something that happened in the past, and they could let it go. Like there was a lady who was regressed who talked about traveling across America in like the early 1800s, and their wagon train was attacked by Native Americans, and she was shot in the neck with an arrow and killed. Yeah. And for years she had this pain in her neck that would never go away. Like she went to doctors and chiropractors, and nothing ever worked. But once she relived this experience, the pain was gone, and she never had it again.
I believe
very interesting stuff.
I believe 100%. Yeah. By the way, these stories for everyone, these are what I believe. You don't have to believe them. But
well, that's what this channel is all about. You know, we talk about all kinds of things. I have guests from various beliefs and who've had all kinds of interesting experiences, and I like to mix it up, have it different. Like when I met you, I had no idea that you were even interested in past life regression, and it's something I've been interested in for a long time. I've never done it, never experienced it, but the whole concept fascinates me. And I was talking to someone, you know, because there's so many religious beliefs out there. I mean, hundreds of different religions and beliefs. And when you talk about Buddhism and you talk about regression, it can make sense if you think about, for example, let's say a 5-year-old child, you know, walks out in the street and gets killed by a car. And okay, how can there be a God? How can that be just? You know, how can that work into any kind of divine plan? And what I was told was perhaps that child let's say that child has 2 parents, loving parents, wonderful parents, and this is their only child, and so they're devastated when this child is killed. In a past life, they were together again, and the child is actually the old soul here of the three of them. And in a past life, these same parents, they had 5 children, and they were terrible parents.
Yeah.
They ignored their children. They didn't take care of them. You know, they might have even been abusive. And so in this life, the child has volunteered to reincarnate with those 2 other people, those 2 other souls, not to punish them. It's not about punishment.
To teach them a lesson.
To teach them a lesson, to learn how to cherish a child, and how a child is, you know, such a gift.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about. And so the child died and lived this short life by his own choice.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And so that's you think about it. I mean, okay, I can see that making some kind of sense, but there's so many beliefs out there about, you know, some people, you know, believe Jesus, some people believe in Buddha, Muhammad, whatever. But I think we'll all find out someday, the day we die.
Yeah.
And you'll just wake up and go, oh, so that's it. Or, you know, maybe there's nothing. Yeah. But I like to have an open mind and discuss, you know, whatever. There's lots of possibilities out there. And some of these beliefs have been around for thousands of years. It's not like they came up with it yesterday.
Yeah. Well, your story there was a good example of karma.
Yeah.
And I believe in that. So we shouldn't judge anyone for anything because we don't know.
No.
The story.
And if someone has different beliefs than you, I believe in, like, okay, that's fine. I may not believe it, but I'm not going to hold it against you. I can still be friends with you, but as long as they don't try and push it on me, that's where I draw the line. It's like, you can have whatever religious beliefs you want, whatever political beliefs you want, but don't try and push it on me. We can discuss it, but don't try and, you know, convince me to change to your religion, your political views, and we'll be fine. And I think the world would be a better place if everybody was like that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. We're all on our own journeys. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I agree
so
with that.
Let's shift gears here. Off camera, you told me a couple of stories about your travels.
Yeah.
Why don't you just pick one of those out and tell us one of your more interesting travel stories that
you
really had? Let me pick. I get to pick.
Okay.
I want to talk about the living on the houseboat. Tell me about that.
Okay. And Kashmir. Yeah, I've been to Kashmir a couple of times. Srinagar is the town, and Dal Lake is the lake. All these houseboats are on, and a lot of them are run down. Some are really nice. They're all a different variety of them, and the prices vary. But I remember staying on them, I think it was like 40 rupees a day, something ridiculously low, which included 3 meals and a pot of tea whenever I wanted.
How many people, were there other people on there with you, or just you?
No, I was the only one.
Well, there was somebody serving you, or?
Yeah. Muhammad and his son, also Muhammad. Yeah.
So you were the guest on this houseboat, and they were like, you know, like almost like a bed and breakfast houseboat.
But bed and breakfast and dinner and lunch.
And dinner.
Yeah.
Wow. And were you sailing around and traveling around while you're on the boat? Or?
No, the houseboat just sits there.
It just sits there. Oh, okay.
Whenever you want to go on land, the son, Muhammad, they have a little boat. He'd take me over to the other side of the lake, and I'd walk from there. And
so was it tied up to a dock?
Yes. Yeah. There are lots of them.
But what if you want to go somewhere? Will they take you out on it, or do they never go anywhere? They just stay tied up?
It just stayed tied up. It was my accommodation.
Oh, I get it. Okay.
And also interesting on there, they had books that had been signed with stories from British soldiers from like 100 years ago. Really interesting. Really interesting reading some of their stories, and thank you, Muhammad, or whoever it was at the time that owned that houseboat. Yeah, it was really, really interesting. The British really lived well back then in India.
Yeah, they did. Ruling things. Yeah.
Yeah. I really enjoyed Kashmir. I visited a place called Gulmarg, which in wintertime was a ski resort, and in summertime was a golf course. So I had a golf lesson there, which was really good. And of course, everything's very inexpensive. Another place called Sonamarg, just a beautiful area. It's up in the Himalayas. It's it's just beautiful. It's hard to get there. Like from Delhi, I took a video bus, so I was subjected to Indian movies for many hours. I can't remember how many.
Bollywood.
Yeah, Bollywood. Yeah.
Hmm.
So that was pretty.
Now you told me one time that you had been up near Mount Everest. Is that right?
Yes, I trekked from. Well, I took a plane from Kathmandu to what's the town? I can't remember the town now.
That's okay. You don't have to remember. You don't have to remember the town. That's all right.
Yeah. So the plane takes off in Kathmandu and climbs and climbs and climbs and climbs and climbs and climbs and lands.
Hmm.
And it lands in because Kathmandu, I think, is only about 3,000 feet altitude, and the town it lands in is about 9,000. So that's kind of the starting point where most people trek Mount Everest. So when the plane landed, all these people were coming up, wanting to be my guide. So I picked out someone. His name was Lakpa Nuru, and he became my guide for the trek. So that cost me, I remember, $2 a day. So,
but you didn't go there to actually climb Mount Everest. You just went there to see that area. Yeah.
To go to the base camp. Yeah, it was. My objective was the base camp, and I didn't even quite make that. I was about a 4-hour walk short of that before I got sick. And
don't you have to stay there for a while to acclimate to the climate and the altitude? Like I thought you had to be there for like a couple of weeks to have your body get used to it.
Well,
before you even attempt to go up there.
I was young and fit at the time, and I pushed myself a bit too much. And I mean, Lakpa, he knew the places to stay and how long to stay each place. But I felt so good up there. I just wanted to go off for walking, and I did. So I'd go off walking by myself. But it was probably not a good idea, because when you sleep, weird things happen to your brain because oxygen's different. You're not getting as much oxygen. There's a lot less at that altitude. It was about 16,500 feet. I got really, really sick.
Wow.
I could easily have died. A lot of people were dying, even Sherpas.
Really?
Yeah, of altitude sickness. Yeah, every month people would die.
I thought the Sherpas could climb Mount Everest without even taking oxygen because they're so used to it.
Well, I mean,
some of them.
Probably anyone could if they did it quickly and came back down, but it's sleeping up at a high altitude that's the problem.
Oh.
So there's a place called Gorak Shep. I think that was the last village that I was in, and that, sleeping there, that's where I could easily have died. It was really, it felt dangerous. By morning time, I was in real pain.
When you say pain, what kind of pain? Like a headache or?
Yeah, it's headache. Really, really bad headache. I lost my energy for a long time. And ended up back down in Kathmandu. Calcutta. When I got out of Nepal and down to Calcutta, that's when I had a Pepsi with ice. Then I got sick with the diarrhea and lost all my weight. I was really skinny, gaunt.
What's Calcutta like to visit? Tell me about Calcutta.
Well, the first time I went to Calcutta, I was traveling with a French guy. I think we probably met up with each other in Kathmandu. I've been to Kathmandu several times. And he's another big guy like me, like we're both about 6'2", not as big as you. But, and I felt kind of bad, but we were there for the monsoon, start of the monsoon seasons. And the sky was falling. It was crazy, a lot of water. And we got a rickshaw, and this poor little guy was taking us to a hotel. It was actually more like a backpackers. It was the Salvation Army, which they use as backpackers in, I forget the street, in Calcutta, fairly famous street. But he was up to his knees in water, and
he's pulling two men in a rickshaw.
Pulling two men in a rickshaw, pulling two big men in a rickshaw. Yeah. It was crazy. Yeah.
So I feel sorry for him. It's like that's one reason I don't go horseback riding unless it's a really big horse. I feel sorry for the horse.
Yeah.
Two guys pulling me,
Yeah. Yeah, I did too.
Wow.
Anyway, I'm sure we made it worth his while. So, yeah.
Now, when you travel, you travel on a budget. Or when these stories you're talking about, you were traveling on a budget. Why you weren't staying in 5-star hotels and flying business class, And so were you backpacking basically, like what did you take with you, like as far as luggage? What did you have, like a backpack? Do you have a suitcase? I mean, how much stuff did you take with you?
Back then, I think I was using a backpack. Yeah. Yeah.
I have one of my other guests I've had on, Justin. I think you've watched a couple of his videos, and he backpacked around Europe too. I've had several other guests who've done the same thing. So I got young people who watch my channel, and they get these crazy ideas, like when they're still young in their 20s, and say, "Wow, I'd like to backpack around the world and do what those guys did when they were young." So let's say you had a son, and he's 23 years old, and he's going to go to Europe and go backpacking. What would you tell him to put in that backpack? What would you say? You got to take this with you. Don't take that. What should you put in that small little backpack? What kind of advice would you give the young people out there watching today that would like to go backpacking through Europe and stay in hostels?
Basically, as little as possible. I mean, Justin had it right. Remember when he lost his bag, or it was stolen or whatever?
Yeah.
Took it, and he felt free. Once then he didn't have anything to carry around, and he felt good.
Yeah, but tell us some things you got to have in there. How about, like, I guess you can't take a Swiss Army knife. You're not allowed to take those on airplanes anymore. That would have been useful.
Well, I didn't. Yeah.
Obviously, your cell phone, your charger. I don't know if you'd want to take a small laptop, but a cell phone and a charger. Medication.
You need clothes. It depends on the weather. So, but as little as possible. I mean,
I say good. How about really good shoes?
Yeah, good shoes.
One pair of good shoes. Yeah.
Comfortable shoes. Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Did you take 2 pair of shoes or 1 pair of shoes?
I take a pair of shoes and a pair of flip flops.
Okay.
We call them thongs in Australia.
Yeah. They call them slippers here.
Oh, okay.
In the Philippines.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Interesting.
Well, let me ask you this: if you were a young man today, and take the pandemic out of the picture, say no pandemic, would you do it again? Would you go backpacking through Europe and India, and would you do that again? Or
well, I'll tell you, some places I would and some I wouldn't. I had a really hard time in Europe. I had an easy time in America. Had a great backpacking experience hitchhiking experience in America, but not.
Tell me about that. And what year was this? And how old were you?
It was the same trip. It was the same 1985. So I was 32.
Okay. And you're hitchhiking across America by yourself, right?
I was by myself for this segment. I had a friend join me for about 6 weeks or 4 weeks. I can't remember. I've hitchhiked across America too, like from Cincinnati to Florida, but I don't even know if it's legal anymore. Is it still legal in America to hitchhike? I don't know, but it's harder. I know because most of my experience was with truckers, and I love.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I was always picked up by. I never was picked up by a semi truck. I was always picked up by just regular cars and people, and some of them were quite strange.
Yeah.
But so semi truck. I thought that also. I'm pretty sure that it's against the rules for a trucker to pick up a hitchhiker because of hijackings and stuff. And I think they could lose their job if they got caught picking up a hitchhiker. Of course, unless they own their own truck, I guess.
Yeah, different times.
Yeah, different times.
If he had to drop me off because he was going in a different direction to where I was going, he would drop me off and he would get on his 2-way and call out to a trucker friend and tell him to pick me up. He's good people.
Oh, wow. That's nice on the CB radio. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So where were you hitchhiking from? From where to where?
From San Francisco. From Portland to Bend, Oregon.
I've been there.
Okay. Our friends in Bend. I stayed with them for quite a while. And then
I like Oregon.
Then I had them drop me off when I was ready to go at a truck stop. And then I went there to San Francisco with truckers.
So where did you stay in San Francisco? Because San Francisco is an expensive city, even back then.
Yeah, I can't remember. Where I stayed. That I might have gone on down to. I might have gone on down to Los Angeles, because that's when I was joining up. My friend was flying in from Australia, and he was going to join me. I was traveling for 6 months, so this was just the second segment. The first was Japan, and US was the second segment.
Well, how did you keep in contact with your friend, like when he arrived or that he was coming? Like, there's no cell phones back then, no email back then. So how did you communicate?
I knew the day and time of his flight.
But if it had changed, you'd never have no way of finding out, would you?
No, we wouldn't have caught up.
So obviously it worked out. So
it worked out. Yeah, it was worked out well. But I remember on that truck stop, when we stopped overnight on the drive to San Francisco at a big furniture warehouse, and there was like a semi-trailer, not the rig, but the actual trailer.
Yeah.
And there were some mattresses up against the wall. So I just put a mattress under the trailer, and that was my accommodation for the night there. Slept really well, really comfy. So, yeah, it was a nice little adventure. I became a trucker for a few days. I loved it.
And so from Australia to America, you're now dual citizenship. You have American and Australian citizenship.
Yeah.
Tell me what you like about America compared to Australia, like what makes you stay in America rather than in your own country, and what you miss about Australia. Because I've been to Australia many times. I think it's a fantastic country. A bit expensive for a lot of things, but it's a great place and wonderful people. So tell me your thoughts about, why you're in America and why you're not in Australia.
Well, America is a lot more interesting cities to visit and whatever. Australia, you're fairly isolated. You've only got, Adelaide, Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, Perth. That's basically it.
And they're all basically the same too.
And they're all a long way from each other, so you rarely go visit another. So you're really stuck in your city. They're nice cities. But here, there's more stimulus, more stimulation. I like to go cruising. Now, to go cruising, they don't have cruises out of Adelaide, so you'd have to go to Sydney or Melbourne.
Yeah, Sydney or Brisbane, too. I've been sailed out of Brisbane several times.
Well, that's a relatively new thing. And I've enjoyed my sports here. I've played a lot of national squash championships and table tennis championships. So that's been interesting here.
Would you go back to Australia to visit, like on a regular basis? Like you have family? You don't have children, do you? Do you have children?
I don't have any children. No.
No children. No. And so, how about like brothers and sisters? And
I have a brother in Sydney, a brother in Adelaide, but I have some wonderful friends that I love to go back and visit. When my mum was alive, she passed away about 10 years ago at 93. I would visit every year. I would spend at least 3 weeks a year with her. And that's when I would get the round the world tickets.
Right.
And so I virtually did that every year, and spent 3 weeks with her and some other months or whatever in other countries to prop up the adventure.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, when's the last time you've been back to Australia? How long has it been?
It's I think it's 6 years now. My last 2 flights.
6 years. Wow.
My last 2 flights have been cancelled.
Well, because of the pandemic?
Yeah. This one was the pandemic, and the last one I had an injury.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now you lived in Austin for a while too, you say, which is a wonderful city. But I assume that if you like to cruise, I mean, there's no place better to live than Florida on cruising.
That's right.
As someone who likes cruises, as soon as things open back up, are you ready to hop on a ship and take a cruise?
I am. I can't wait.
That's good. That's good to know. Where will you go? Any idea or any plans? Or you don't care?
I don't care. Like life on the ship. And And
Yeah,
I've
you're
been
like me.
all the Caribbean places. The only one I've got yet to see is Curacao. So I'm looking forward to
Oh,
seeing that.
yeah, Curaçao's nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't been there yet.
Hmm. Well, yeah, I think it'll come back. Hopefully, things are moving fast with the vaccine, and I think once you can prove you've been vaccinated, they'll probably let you back on a ship, and the Food and Drug Administration will let the cruise industry fire back up. Hopefully.
I think so too. Yeah,
Hmm.
I think so. I'm looking forward to my vaccination.
Hmm. So you haven't had it yet, huh?
No,
Hmm. Have they? What do you have to do there in Florida? You have to like make an appointment, or do they let you know, or you're in
well,
the right age group? You said you're 68, right?
yes, I am.
So I think you'd be eligible.
I am eligible. My clinic, actually, that I go to, they just recently got in the equipment to freeze the vaccine,
Yeah.
so they were
Hmm.
just waiting on getting the vaccines. And also
Okay.
another tack, the county, they have my name, so that they'll contact me as well if they come up first with one.
Hmm.
So I'm just waiting.
No, should happen soon enough. Should
Yeah,
happen soon enough.
I think it'll be
Um,
within a month.
and so are there any other countries on your bucket list where you haven't been, or any other countries where you have been there and you want to go back? Like, will you think you'll ever go back to India or to Tibet or someplace you haven't been that you'd like to go?
Um, I would go back to Kathmandu. I love that place. Um, but other than that, I don't really care. I want to come and visit you, actually. On my next trip to Australia, I'll do it via Philippines, I think. And I'd like to visit
That'd be
you.
great. Yeah, lot to
And
see here, and you can see my friend Paul and my friend Dan too.
yeah, definitely. My friend
Yeah, yeah,
Dan.
your friend Dan. Yeah,
Yeah, our
yeah.
friend
We're
Dan.
talking about another friend of mine that was we did videos with him 6 months ago. I think is when I did the first one.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
lives. I could walk from my house to his house. It's not that far. It's
Nice.
about it's like a nice, say, 2 kilometer walk up the
Yeah,
mountain.
yeah. Oh, fantastic.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, we've gone 42 minutes here,
Oh,
Kim. So I think we'll go ahead and wrap up this segment. And in
okay.
the next day or two, I'd love to do another one. I know you've got so many stories to tell,
I've got
and I
lots.
really appreciate your time. And all you guys that have been watching and commenting, I'm sorry that I'm not answering comments. It's kind of a new style I'm doing. I will be doing some other live streams later on this month where I'll do just myself answer your questions. But on this particular one, I'll be responding to comments later on after we end the broadcast. But I just kind of wanted to try this. It's a way for me to interview people from other countries and kind of expand my channel a little bit. So I really appreciate you subscribing, sharing my videos. And if you got any questions, I'll be happy to answer them for you. My email address will be in the description of this video once I post it officially. So thanks a lot, Kim. Thank you for watching, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, we're not live anymore. Just a second, it's just loading down here.